Hello, thank you for letting me back into your life. I appreciate that. I hope you're all doing well. Um, I have been thinking a lot. Ironically, this is a thought that pops up often. I've been thinking a lot about the scene in Men in Black, the Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones film. That's quite a few years old now, where they are giving the written exam portion of the candidate test. And Will Smith and the uniformed gentlemen are all sitting in these eggshell like seats, right? It's completely curved, there's no straight lines. And they're given a pencil and the paper test in order to go to complete it. And all of them begin to try to figure out ways to put it on their leg, to be able to fill in the boxes or write out the answers or whatever the test looked like. And they were trying to put it against the seat and the chair, and it was all curved, and so they couldn't. There was no place cleanly to put it in, so they pushed through the paper. And Will Smith sees an end table, coffee table, whatever, small round table. And at a certain point, he gets up, he pulls on it, and rather than picking it up and carrying it over, whatever, he screeches it across the floor comically. And as he gets it, when he gets close, he's going to use it. He offers it to the guy next to him, and the guy just grimaces at him, and looks at him like, "You're crazy, and why are you doing this?" And I love this scene because it is a reminder to me that the expectations we imagine that exist around us are often shared, yes, but often self-imposed as well. And they don't actually exist necessarily. And what Will Smith's character did there was he showed that he could think outside the box. He showed that the expectations that you are just given by the world aren't necessarily how you should be treating it. But the other individuals who didn't think of it, and the individual who grimaced at him for doing so, really were attempting. I mean, the last gentleman was attempting to like shame him into playing along, right? It's kind of like the elevator experiments that they did, where someone who wasn't a participant, who was not in on the experiment, would get into an elevator, and then all of the people in the elevator would be facing the wrong way. So what happened more often than not would that be that the individual gets in, then proceeds to face the wrong way with everyone else, or if everyone sat down, they would sit down, or whatever they did, right? And they've done this in other settings as well, where they've seen that individuals are likely to go ahead and copy the behavior of the group that they participate with. And what I think is necessary to understand is that we've done this our entire lives, right? This is fundamental to the way in which humans develop, and it's absolute key to our survival. And so it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. But utilizing it, living it without question, going ahead and moving through our entire lives, not going ahead and looking at the assumptions which are baked into our everyday lives, is problematic. Everyone failed that test. Everyone was sent back to live their life, except for Will Smith, who wasn't allowed to remember the test, but was offered the job. But the only reason he did that is because, unlike most of the people we find ourselves with, and he found himself with, he just followed what was understood to be reality. And so I think that critical engagement with the world that we live in, with the thoughts that we have, with the conversations that we're exposed to, with what we've been taught by our elders and our friends and communities and television, are all absolutely necessary. It's this idea that we have to go ahead and and look at what we've been given and understand why and where that came from. And that's part of what led me to become an individual who does the systems theory thing, who does the systems architecture thing. I am constantly attempting to understand the constraints and the incentives and the unseen soft coercion or the hard coercion that forms the world we live in. And one of the things that gets me is that there's no way that the Will Smith character or any of us could have been free of those. We have to have biases and expectations in order to mold the world around us. And I don't think that we ever become free of that. Some of you may be familiar with Plato's allegory of the cave. In this thought experiment, he talks about how an individual is living in this cave. They don't know it's a cave, but everything they see is a shadow cast on the wall in front of them. And the fire and the miniatures or whatever that are casting these shadows are all behind them. And his chain breaks. And he gets up and he sees that it's just shadows cast on the wall. It's not real reality, right? And he proceeds to go past where the fire is, and he explores outwards, and he finds his way out of the cave, and he finds himself in real life, in the real world, outside, and seeing it all. And he proceeds to go back in, and he tries to free his friends who are there, who are also living a chained life like he was living, But they're not interested in becoming free. They're not interested in coming out of the cave. They're not interested in becoming, living in real life, in the outside world, in the sunlight. They're content with their expectations. And in a lot of ways, that scene from Men in Black is a depiction of the same sort of idea. There's a lot of things that Plato was attempting to do there. He was a fan of forms. He was a fan of this idea that all the chairs we've ever built are actually just attempts to make the perfect chair that exists somewhere in the world and the universe of forms. And I don't buy that, right? But what I do buy is that we all live in caves. We live in these caves of biases and expectations and structures and systems, and if we don't question them, then they can become prisons. But I don't think that anybody can ever be free of a cave. No matter how out of a cave you get, you're always still in a cave, because the cave isn't made of rock walls. The cave isn't made of water-hewn, caverns and tunnels, etc. The cave is, at the end of the day, it is honestly the expectations. It's what we think exists around us. Even those of us who are most critical, most questioning of expectations, most questioning of our environment, those who always want to understand what's a little underneath of everything, it doesn't change anything but the fact that we still live in those. It's impossible to escape. And even if we did even escape, I think from a thought experiment perspective, it would put us in a position where we're unable to function in this phenomenal world that we live in. And I don't mean phenomenal as in it's awesome. It is, right? But it has its days, right? But that exists as phenomenon, exists as incidents and experiences, and exists as something quantifiable and qualitativable, right, if you will. And so I think that it's necessary to appreciate, one, that our cave is real. Our cave is always going to be real. We'll always live in a cave. But I think it's also important that we don't imagine that our cave is the whole truth. We don't imagine that our cave is objectively real for everyone. It's not something which everyone else feels and navigates the exact same way. It's a highly complex, highly individualized Venn diagram of reality that overlaps with other people's. And there's a lot of share. There's a vast shared subjectivity, which may or may not underpin a shared objective reality. Most likely, I think the evidence tilts towards it does. But we need to understand that we're experiencing this reality, experiencing this shared subjectivity through our highly individualized lenses. And so in order to go ahead and appreciate and understand it more fully, more honestly, appreciate ourselves more fully, more honestly, and appreciate each other more fully and more honestly, we need to go ahead and make sure that we question the caves that we've allowed ourselves to be brought into, the caves that we've been given, and the caves that we built for ourselves that we may not even realize we were building. But every time we add knowledge to our own, our who we are, every time we help fill out how we imagine reality works and who we are in reality and who others are, we reinforce that scaffolding of that cave. And so I want you to remember, you're not stuck I'm not stuck using the paper on the eggshell seat. You could grab that table and pull it over. You could go ahead and sit on the floor. You could walk over to the wall. You could write there, because you're free to do that. You are free to go ahead and adjust your scaffolding, adjust the settings that you interact with for reality, adjust how it is that you view the world. And yeah, so thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you soon and chatting with you some more. So thank you.